Sit down and grab your lunch. It's time for the Bolts Brown Bag, the only show where you make the call.
Break out the brown bags, get out your lunch. It is that time again to talk some Chargers football on a Monday after a thrilling, dramatic, heart-stopping 27-24 win over the St. Louis Rams yesterday. Welcome to our 10 News Cafe patio. Going to be here for the next 30 minutes or so talking Chargers football, and we have a very special guest today joining us. Chargers Hall of Famer in town from Austin, Texas. Louie Kelcher is with us. Lou,
hey, Ben.
It's great to see you. Thanks for stopping by the Brown Bag.
No problem at all.
We got a lot to talk about. I know you're in town for the big blood drive that is tomorrow, and now 35 years of doing something and giving back to the community. One of the, I think, the great events in San Diego.
Yeah, and it unfortunately started with Rolf being sick, which was, but I think the benefits have been super since that day. So Rolf, is an integral part of San Diego and the blood drive and the blood bank, and it was a big part of our team.
Well, we'll get into that as we go along. We'll also be joined by one of the probably most notable Chargers fans out there right now. He's got a huge Twitter following. You on Twitter, Louie?
I don't do any.
He doesn't do Twitter. He doesn't do social media. Okay, so Eric Stangel is the former head writer for The Late Show with David Letterman, and if you do follow him on Twitter, you know he's just like you, an agonizing Chargers fan, loves the team, loves the history of the team, and I understand he might have a surprise or two for Louie as well. So he's going to join us in just a few minutes. We got our poll question, all of our usual segments, but I just want to get caught up with what you've been up to, in the last few years and how things are going with you.
Everything's great. Moved back to Austin. I'm originally from Texas. I went to school at SMU in Dallas, and so it was good to get back. I've been there since the early 90s. Raising kids like everybody else, life kind of takes over, and I have 4 beautiful kids, and they're all grown. I'm trying to get my twin girls out of college, hopefully by next month, and my wife Mary Lynn and I are just trying to enjoy being empty nesters here, and got back in the 90s and got into the warehousing and trucking business, and it had been real good for me, and so it's just always fun to come back, and I really enjoy coming back when there's a Santa Ana day.
It's beautiful. Isn't it a great day to be outside? You're not stuck in the studio. I'm glad we're out here on the patio, so it's perfect. Now, if you're a newer, younger Chargers fan, you're not quite familiar with the team history, Louie is a Chargers Hall of Famer, late 70s, early 80s, anchored the defensive line, and you look great, Louie, but the hands have not gotten any smaller. Can we just kind of do this? I'm not a small person. I'm 6'4". I'm a big guy, and Louie just absolutely was a monster in his day in the NFL, and quite frankly still would be around today. How do you think you'd compare against some of the big boys on those offensive lines today?
I don't know. We were standing outside the Charger locker room yesterday when they were coming in after pregame, and I made a comment. I said, "Man, those guys look huge," So I don't know if it was just the pads or they looked young and fit, and but had some really good-looking athletes there. And my job was easy because I played with such great guys on the line with Fred Dean and Gary Johnson and Leroy Jones and Charles DeJournay and John Lee and all those guys, Wilbur Young. So
I don't understand how you can be on a team with someone else who gets the nickname Big Hands.
Well,
when I see yours, it seems like that should have been your nickname.
Well, he was Big Hands, and we let him stay with that. So.
All right, so comparing history is one of the things we're going to be doing today. We've got a poll question. If you're watching up on the website, it's right along the right side so you can vote. It's a very simple one this week, and the question is, who do you think is the better quarterback, Dan Fouts or Phillip Rivers? And I've already got some angry old-time Chargers fans who say, how can you even ask the question? Dan Fouts is a Hall of Famer. I'm not trying to take anything away from Dan Fouts, but I'm also looking at the numbers and what Phillip Rivers has done. Did you know he's only 11 touchdowns away from tying Dan Fouts in his 15 seasons? Phillip Rivers now in his 9th season as Chargers starter. Has thrown about half as many interceptions as Dan did. Now, it's not just a numbers game, of course. Football is about more than that, and I know Dan was an unbelievable leader, but I thought maybe you could talk a little bit playing with Dan Fouts and what he was like as a quarterback.
Well, you're not going to get any competition out of me. I'm going with Dan. Besides, I enjoy playing golf with him and seeing him. I think it's a different game. I think it's different offenses, different things are happening today. But Dan was Dan, and I think in the system with Don Coryell, it worked out perfect. I think with Philip, I think he's just getting a little more consistent, and he's been a great quarterback, and from what I understand, just as much a great guy and a good team leader. So I don't want to get into apples to apples and stuff like
fair
that.
Enough.
So
fair enough. We'll let the viewers
be
do
a
that.
politician on this one.
That's fair enough. And then if you want to tweet responses at Ben Higgins SD or at Bolts Brown Bag, you can give us your thoughts. You can vote in the poll. We'll read some of those a little bit later on in the program if you're interested. I also want to talk a little bit about yesterday's game because there's a lot of exciting NFL games, but that one in particular had so much drama, so many twists and turns. We had a few of the Chargers talking about it afterwards, including the guy who sealed the win with the interception, Marcus Gilchrist.
We all love the blowout wins, but when you got to fight and scratch, come together as a team, those are the ones you really build off of.
It's great to overcome like we did last week, like we did this week, when we have some things not go so good. I watch games every week. We all watch them every week. Quarterbacks throw interceptions, quarterbacks throw them for touchdowns, but then the team finds a way to overcome it and win, and so we were able to do that.
Today was one of those games that makes you appreciate being in the NFL, makes you just kind of sit back and enjoy it. Even with the back and forth. I mean, this today is why it's such a great game.
All right, Marcus Gilchrist, Phillip Rivers, and Jarrett Johnson at the end. And I think even players know when they're in a kind of a special, exciting game like that because they don't always get so dramatic.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Couldn't believe how many penalties were thrown. And I think obviously the Chargers were fortunate that the left tackle, I think, for the Rams was holding on those two touchdowns.
Yeah, both called back.
Yeah, and so but it had a little bit of everything. I think you definitely got your money's worth, and then thinking maybe at the end everything's looking good. All we got to do is this and that, and next thing you know, they punt and the guy runs it back, and then the catch at the 6-yard line, and it's one of those where you say thank you and let's go to next week.
It was, but the Chargers did some impressive things in that game. To me, I was worried going in about the offensive line against that Rams defensive front. 18 sacks in the last 6 weeks or so, had been beating some really good teams, the Seahawks, the Niners, the Broncos the week before, and the Chargers offensive line had been a little shaky. They'd had some injuries. They lost Nick Hardwick, and I'm going, this could be trouble. And they played really well. They protected Phillip Rivers, just 3 sacks, and none of them were big, big, quick sacks. Coverage sacks, Phillip took sacks. And then the run blocking. 12 carries for 105 yards for Ryan Matthews. And in particular, the touchdown by Keenan Allen, that wide receiver screen, the downfield blocking by all the guys, the wide receivers, the offensive linemen getting out there. That, to me, was a thing of beauty. If you're a football coach, that had to be something you love.
Yeah, and it was, living back in Texas, we don't get a lot of the Charger stuff. We get all Cowboys and Texans, but it was good to see the guys play that I've heard over and over their names, and I think Matthews is an awesome. I think he's just got back from injury, and I think it was me just trying to familiarize myself with the guys that are playing now. I just heard their names, and it was fun watching them perform, and I hope that they keep going, and I hope they win it out, and I think it'd be a great thing for the Chargers and the community.
Well, it'd be exciting to see another playoff run. And they got a tough stretch coming up, but they're in position at 7-4. They've given themselves a shot. So, Louie, what we do each week on the show, since this is called Bolts Brown Bag, we got lunch. And Brandon here is our sous chef at the 10 News Cafe. He also plays a little football. He's a wide receiver.
Nice to meet
Louie
you.
Kelcher, a Chargers Hall of Famer. He comes out and he tells us what's for lunch. So, Brandon, what's on the menu today?
Today we have split Cornish game hen with some steamed broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots with some nice sauteed potatoes, red potatoes.
Okay, that's not just chicken. That's a Cornish game hen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they're getting fancy on. What's like the difference? Yeah.
Just the size, really.
Just the size and
the flavor. We add a little zestiness to it. So.
It looks great.
Thank you.
That's all for you as soon as the show's over, if you want it. So, Brandon,
as much as you like.
What did you think about yesterday's game and the performance, just kind of the drama of the whole thing?
Yeah, I seen Phillip Rivers was under a lot of pressure. The front line from the Rams was pretty good and aggressive throughout the first 3 quarters. I didn't see, again, enough deep balls for them to throw. They didn't get going with the deep ball about to mid-third quarter, late into fourth. That's when they got the really openings. I was surprised that they got off as many screens as they did. You would think that the Rams would just like, okay, here comes the screen, here comes the screen, here comes the play action, here comes the screen. Ryan Matthews actually did well to me. I think he actually looked like he was back to healthy and running back to the way he likes to run.
Yeah.
So I like that game.
And I think that was part of the strategy. You mentioned no deep balls, but Philip Rivers was getting rid of the ball quickly, and I think that was to help the offensive line to mitigate, that Rams defensive front and kind of take him out of the game a little bit. If you get short passes, get rid of the ball quickly, it kind of nullified one of the Rams' strengths.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, Brandon, great to see you. Thanks for
Thanks
stopping
for having me by.
That looks great. Save that for Louie
All
after
right.
the show.
Hey, Brandon, thank you.
Nice meeting you.
I'm sure he's
Congratulations.
going to want a little some of that. The real reason you're here this week, though, is for the blood drive. So I want to get into that a little bit more and really talk about the history. You mentioned a little bit about the beginning. 35 years ago, though, Chargers kicker Rolf Benerschke had some medical problems, turned out to be something called ulcerative colitis.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I know he needed a lot of blood transfusions during the surgeries. And the community came on and heard about this. And I believe the story goes one of the Chargers employees, someone in the office, said,
I don't know exactly who, but Rolf. It was sort of one of those spontaneous deals where Rolf took a lot of blood to recover, and they were trying to figure out a way to replace that. And I think the Chargers saw an opportunity to work with the San Diego Blood Bank, and really was just expecting a small turnout. And they showed up, 1,000 people showed up, and it's just continually grown, and here we are, 36 years later. It's become an integral part of the San Diego Chargers and the San Diego community and the blood bank.
The growth has been amazing, and we had a chance to talk to Rolf, and you were down on the field yesterday about it. So here's a little bit of Rolf Benerschke about the blood drive.
It's amazing how many people over the years have come up to us and said, if it weren't for the blood in the blood bank, my kid wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here, my wife. And so it's humbling to think 36 years ago it started in this crazy way.
All right, so you're looking at the video. Can we put the video back up there, Rob? That's of what was happening then around that time. And you guys played a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Rolf was recovering from his illness, still very weak, very light. Shows up in the locker room, and you bring him out onto the field as a captain, and there you are. There's Rolf right in the middle.
Yeah,
and
he looks like a 12-year-old kid.
I mean, this has turned into kind of one of the iconic images of San Diego. Just tell me a little bit more about that moment and that day with Rolf out there on the field with you.
I walked in. I had tore my ACL in camp, but I was still on the roster. I was a captain, so I was coming in for the game. I saw Rolf at the elevator. He had those little overalls on, and he still had sutures in him. He really was really weak. And I asked him what he was doing. He'd been invited down to watch the game, and so I said, "Well, why don't you come down and say hi to the guys?" And as soon as he got down there, the locker room erupted, and the guys were glad to see him. It's one of our own. It's a friend first, but a teammate later. And all of a sudden, I got a wild hair. I asked Coach Coryell. I said, why don't we make Rolf an honorary captain? And next thing you know, Sid Brooks, our equipment manager, is putting a jersey on Rolf. Rolf hadn't even said anything, and we walk out of the tunnel, and the crowd went crazy. It was just electrifying, and one of those special days in our lives, And then we went out to the middle of the field. We were walking back, and he just said, "I don't know if I'm gonna make it." And it was one of those things where my hand reached out, touched his, and Terry Cluck, a good friend of ours, took the picture, and it's been linked together ever since. And I'm just glad that to be a small part of it. But Rolf was the one that has really pushed this thing through and directed the growth. And it's just sad that it had to take an illness like it did to have him be there. But the recovery was remarkable.
Well, making lemons out of lemonade. Now, 35 years later, you got blood drive that set a Guinness World Record for most donated blood in a day, and I know it's going to be another big one tomorrow. We got another special guest today. I want to bring him in now. He is the former head writer for The Late Show with David Letterman, and if you follow him on Twitter, at Eric Stangel, he's just like the rest of us. He's a diehard Chargers fan, agonizes weekly with the team, all the ups and downs. Eric, it is great to have you on Bolts Brown Bag. How are you?
This is very exciting for me. Nice to meet you, Louie.
Hey, Eric, how are you, babe?
I'm great. I remember when I was a kid. Was that moment that you're talking about, was that 1979, 1980?
Yes, it was, Eric.
Right. I remember that image of you walking Rolf out on the field. And as a kid, what struck me most was, here you are, a giant man. Like we idolize football players, big and tough, and you were holding his hand on the way out. And I was thinking, wow, this is something special. And it always kind of struck me. So,
Well, it wasn't something that you thought about. It was just a reaction, and that it just happened. And like I said, it's just been a part of my life ever since.
Were you guys really close before that as well?
Well, he was a kicker.
That's what I thought. I mean, you're a big defensive
it wasn't
lineman.
like we were good friends.
You were teammates.
We were teammates.
Yeah.
We had a special group back then because with free agency back then, you couldn't really move wherever you wanted to. So we all kind of grew up together in the league, and we knew each other's families and watched the kids grow. And so, for him to be sick like that, it was definitely a family member going down.
Well, Eric, I know you're a big fan of Chargers history, not just the current team. And I know you've got something special for Louie here.
Yeah, well, I was
going
to ask Louie, like, what kinds of things did you save from your career? Did you save any helmets or jerseys from your Chargers days?
I was laughing. We just moved to a new house, and I have like 3 boxes in the garage. And I said, it's funny how your career, every 5 or 10 years, it keeps getting down to lesser number of boxes. So
right.
I still have some things that there's some things that I want to definitely save for my kids, and where they can remember me. At least they didn't really have a chance to ever see me play. My younger kids, but my older kids do, and so it's just something I cherish. The bigger awards, a lot of the clippings and stuff, get kind of trashed over the years, but definitely the Charger Hall of Fame thing is one of the big ones. So I some watches from the Pro Bowl and stuff like that. So I have a little memorabilia left.
Right. Well, I think one of your boxes might have gotten sent to Brooklyn, New York, because somehow I have your 1978 Lineman of the Year trophy.
Where on earth did you pick that up, Eric?
And look, they do the formal Louis. They don't call you Louie on the trophy.
I remember that. Now I don't know. You know what? I don't know if we'll open this can of worms, but what happened was my son. I got divorced, and my son. I was keeping stuff. He had some stuff for me, and my ex-wife had kept his stuff in storage. And I talked to my son one day, and he said, "Hey, the storage. She forgot to pay the bill for a few months, and they sold it at bulk." And I don't know if that was part of it, but I remember that trophy, Eric, and I'm glad it landed up in good hands. Please hold on to that for me, and hopefully one day we'll see each other.
They have a whole TV show about that now. It's called Storage Wars. Is
right.
that where you found that, Eric, on Storage Wars?
It fell off a truck. I don't know.
Well, you know what?
You know what? If you would like this back, I would gladly hand deliver it to you. I'm not going to ask for a hug because of what Johnny Manziel went through, but I will gladly give you a handshake.
You know what? I would, Eric. I think it would be better if you held on to it as a true Charger fan. From me to you, it's my gift to you, and thank you for hanging with us all those years. And if you want to keep it and put it up in your office or wherever, it'd be my honor.
I think it's got a good home.
I think
it does.
Think so.
It's across the country, but at least someone's appreciating it.
You never know. Another 5 years, I might see somebody else going, "Hey, Louie, I got something." I'll come after you, Eric.
Okay, so Louie, I know you're going to be at the blood drive tomorrow. Okay,
yes.
So fans, if you head down Town and Country Hotel like it always is, you can get autographs. Players, I love how players will take their day off, one day off a week, and they almost all show up to sign autographs and help support the blood drive. But it's great to see the alums when they're out there as well. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming by.
Eric, thank you.
Take care.
All right, that Louie Kelcher, Chargers Hall of Famer. It has been an absolute pleasure to have him by. We are not done with the brown bag, though. We are going to continue on with some of our regular features, and Eric's going to stay with us and talk about some of the things. But first, I got to ask you, Eric, when did you first become a Chargers fan? Because obviously you're not, growing up in San Diego like I did, becoming a Chargers fan. It was a natural fit for me. I need to know where the history lies with you.
Well, it ended up kind of being a natural fit for me too, because when I was a kid and just getting into football, the Giants and the Jets, they stunk. And those were the only games that you could watch, because now you can watch every game and it's the greatest thing ever, but you can only watch them and they were bad. And there was one game when the Chargers were playing the Giants and they creamed them. And Fouts had like 444 yards and everybody was scoring touchdowns. And I was like, wow, I love the uniforms. I love the plays. I love the players, Air Coryell, all that. And I was like, this is my team. And they were good, and they made the playoffs. And then they didn't make the playoffs for a long time. 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, all the way up to 92. And I stuck with them. And I'm going to stick with them until they win the whole thing, or until I die.
Well, you know what? As a fan who grew up with the Fouts era, and you started in the Fouts era, and I watched it, I think you are qualifying to sound off on today's poll question. And simply it is, Dan Fouts or Philip Rivers. And, a lot of people are acting like I'm absolutely crazy for even asking the question. But when you look at the numbers, and let me just throw out the argument for Philip Rivers, and we'll get some comments from Twitter. But 35,000 plus yards now in 9 seasons of starting. Dan Fouts was at 43,000 in 15 seasons. But touchdown passes, Fouts 254. Rivers is already at 243. Interceptions, Fouts threw 242 interceptions, 4.3% of his throws. Rivers 113 interceptions, just 2.5% of his throws. Average yards per game, Rivers wins that, 246 to 237. Quarterback rating, Rivers wins that, 96.4 to 80.2. And then to me, Eric, a big one, durability. Philip Rivers has not missed a start since taking over the job in 2006. Dan Fouts was a tough guy, but only played 4 complete seasons. In 1976, he played all 14, and then they went to the 18 or 16-game schedule, 1979 to 1981, but didn't have the durability of Philip Rivers either. So am I absolutely crazy for asking the question, Fouts or Rivers?
Well, I think they have 2 different styles, and Fouts definitely has the stronger arm. I have one more.
Uh-oh, got a little – this happens occasionally. It happens occasionally on Skype when we
All right,
go
let me
down
go
a little
again.
bit. But there you go. Yeah, we're getting you back here, I think. So we'll if we can't, we'll just I'm gonna hook you. I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna recall you up to get a fresh line. So we are going to get Eric back on the line here in a second and get his answer to our Bolts Brown Bag poll question, which is Fouts or Rivers. But when you look at those numbers, I mean, it's pretty interesting that I think they are a lot closer than you'd imagine. In fact, okay, we got you back. I think, Eric.
Right.
A little bit.
Okay, so I got one more number for you. I thought they were crazy too, and because Fouts has the cannon arm, Rivers has the odd delivery, but Dan Fouts had 86 wins in his career. You know how many wins Philip Rivers has?
How many did Philip have? I didn't count that.
After yesterday, 86 wins.
Wow.
86 wins.
And
so
hopefully it's not going to end there.
Right.
So I mean,
kind of the same, even though they don't seem very similar at all.
All right, we got the bad connection again. So hold on one second. I'm gonna try one more time. I'm gonna bring Ferris in for our 3 questions. And Eric, don't go away. I'm gonna try to get you back in just a minute. So hang on for a second. We're gonna move on though with our 3 question segments, as we do have Ferris, our web editor, in here, and we can talk about what's been going on in the NFL. Hopefully get Eric back, because I've been enjoying the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Ferris, we got to get his microphone back up, and welcome.
Hello.
There we
Hi,
go. We
how
got
you
you.
doing?
We got you, Ferris. All right. So first of all, Chargers, you were at the game yesterday.
I was.
That
yeah.
was kind of a thriller.
That was one of the craziest games I think I've watched in a long time. A lot of back and forth. You thought the Chargers might be out of it kind of early in the game, and they come back, and then the Rams late. It was one of the most exciting games. I think it was the most exciting Chargers game of the year. Don't you think?
I think the second half especially was about as dramatic as you get in a football game. I mean, think about it. Starting in the second quarter, you had the 99-yard interception for return for a touchdown. You had a blocked field goal. You had the Chargers have a strip sack, fumble, return for a touchdown. You had a couple of fumbles by Keenan Allen with the redemption of that great touchdown. You had a fake punt by the Rams converted for a first down. And then you had the drama at the end of the game and the interception at the goal line. I mean, that's just about every crazy play that you can come up with at a football game, and we saw all of them.
What did you think of the Tavon Austin at the very end of the game? Tavon Austin runs it back 74 yards, and the referees got very confused, and then they ended up spotting the ball at the 40. What did you think happened there?
I still don't think they made the right call on that one. First of all, probably wasn't holding. We had a great low angle, and I may show it tonight on 10 News of that hold, and it was a ticky-tack call that really helped the Chargers.
Yeah.
But the hold happened during the kick. The ball was in the air. Cavell Connor was running down the field, and a guy grabbed him, and you see the referee throwing the flag right at that spot. So that was the call. The ball can't be advanced then from where the returner, I mean, you have to assume that if a guy's held while the ball's in the air, he could have gone down and made the tackle. So you can't let the runner advance. So I think the Rams got 30 free yards from the referees by making a mistake on that play. Ultimately, Chargers won the game, so they're not going to go back and complain, but it certainly could have been the difference between a win and a loss. I mean, we could have had a huge controversy on this one.
Yeah, it was a very confusing. I felt the refereeing during the game, the officiating was very stilted. Do you think that there was like a what do you think was going on? Because it was just very, very bizarre officiating. Like just the entire game, a lot of the pass interference calls. It was a roughing the penalty, the roughing the passer call on Dwight Freeney earlier in the game. It just seemed like the referees weren't really sure, like kind of what they didn't know. Like, are we calling a tight game? Are we going to let them play? Like, what are we doing?
Well, I know the going in, and I don't remember the name of the official, but that is the crew that throws the most penalties in the NFL. So apparently it's not that atypical to see that many flags from that crew. Kind of got to know, if you're a player, you got to know your officials. Know they're going to call it tight, so you either adjust or you know you're going to get a flag called on you. So let's just move on with the three questions. I'm still trying to get Eric back, but not successful as of yet. So go ahead and give me question number one, and hopefully we'll try Eric here again in a second.
Yeah, so this is the what I'm calling the Captain Obvious question. Was Odell Beckham Jr.'s catch last night in the Giants-Cowboys game, is that the greatest catch ever? That's been the debate today. What do you think?
We're in a society where the latest thing is always the greatest thing. And you're seeing it all over the place. It spawned 1,000 memes on the internet last night.
Yeah.
It was an unbelievable catch. It certainly can go into the discussion of great catches. But when you think about the history of the NFL, and I mean, how many plays have been made? And I mean, there's been a lot of one-handed catches. Antonio Cromartie made an unbelievable one-handed interception of Peyton Manning about 7 years ago at Qualcomm Stadium in a game the Chargers picked him off 6 times, if you can believe that, when he was with the Colts. Here's what I think you give Odell Beckham a little credit for, though. He was also interfered with. I mean, the referees had 2 guys on him, and they both bumped him, and he still made the unbelievable one-handed catch, and he did it with kind of just 3 fingers reaching up, and he made the catch like that, not with the entire hand or 2 hands. So, you know what? I don't want to overreact, but I'm definitely leaning toward it might be the greatest catch of all time.
So, obviously, the comparison to another Giants catch, David Tyree in the Super Bowl, in 2008 Super Bowl. Do you think it's a better catch? Do you think? See, I think the Tyree catch might be better just based on the significance. It was in the Super Bowl. There was a lot more pressure. This was just a regular season game. What do you think? How do you compare the two?
You know what? I think if you're trying to determine what's a better catch, I mean, it shouldn't matter whether it's the Super Bowl or right there or in a great practice. I mean, the physical ability to make a catch doesn't really change based on the situation. I understand, a lot of pressure and you're coming through, and that makes Tyree's catch more memorable. But in terms of athleticism, I didn't think it was that close. I thought Beckham's catch was a lot more impressive. In fact, I think I've seen a lot more catches that were more impressive. Tyree's catch was kind of awkward. I mean, it was unbelievable and cool and amazing, but it was kind of awkward and lucky, I think. And I don't think Odell Beckham's catch was lucky at all. I think it was unbelievably skillful and amazingly athletic.
Yeah. Well, I think you're going to say Odell Beckham is probably people would say he's a better player than David Tyree. He's going to have probably a longer career in the NFL than David Tyree. So, I don't know.
What used car dealership is David Tyree working at right now? That's my question.
Maybe the same one that Josh Gordon's working at.
All right, what's question number 2?
So we talked kind of about the officiating the Chargers game. There were 17 flags. The officiating this season throughout the NFL has been somewhat controversial. What would you say going into next year, if you were the czar of sports, of the NFL, if you could make one rule change, what do you think it would be?
I've got the one that I've always wanted to change, and it doesn't, not just this season, but every season. There should be 2 separate levels of pass interference. There should be a 15-yard penalty like in college, and then a spot foul for a particularly egregious, I mean, the guy throws a bomb and he's just like tackled by the defensive back. You can give it the spot of the foul. And I saw someone sent a great tweet out, and I forget who it was, so I can't give him credit. I wish I could. I said, if you can determine the difference between running into the punter and roughing the punter, can't you determine the difference between kind of an incidental pass interference and a blatant one, and one can be 15 yards and the other, because sometimes you get like a 50-yard penalty that absolutely changes the game when really, legs get locked a little bit, the guy goes up a little early and bumps him. I don't know that should be a 50-yard penalty. That a 15-yard penalty is still moving the ball down the field. It's a first down. That seems more appropriate, but I hate those flags that come out and all of a sudden a team just automatically moves 40, 50 yards down the field.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think the pass interference rule they have to change it. The other one I think is the roughing the passer rule. It's getting ridiculous. I mean, you can't hit quarterbacks anymore. And like, what are these defensive players supposed to do? Like Dwight Freeney yesterday was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how am I supposed to hit the quarterback? So like what like how do you how would you go about kind of changing that to kind of keep the physicality, because the NFL is kind of it's kind of, you got all this stuff with concussions and there's you don't want to season-ending injuries and stuff, and keeping players safe, but how do you maintain the physicality of the game while also keeping guys on the field?
I think there's plenty of physicality still in football. Are quarterbacks not getting roughed up as much as they used to? Sure. Do we really need to see that? I mean, is that why we watch games? Because we want to see quarterbacks get hit hard? No, not really. I mean, I want to see the collisions between the running backs and the linebackers, and a DB timing a play perfectly and breaking up a pass to a wide receiver. But when a quarterback releases the ball, even if you're within that one-step window, then it's not roughing the passer. To me, you were late.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily deserve the free hit. You maybe you get protected by the rules, but I have no problem. Quarterbacks take plenty of beating, and I don't think the rules are that skewed in their favor. I know a lot of people do, but I don't have a problem with it.
But here's my thing: not necessarily quarterbacks in general, but comparing them. So if you take like a Cam Newton or an RG3, who would say, because I'm a running quarterback, I get hit a lot more, and the referees tend not to call penalties on hits because of my style of play, as opposed to like a Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, who just kind of sits back, pocket passer, doesn't move around. I feel like there's a little bit of an unfair advantage there to guys like that.
Well, maybe, but I mean, if you're standing still, I think it's a lot easier for defenses should be able to avoid you as well. If you've already thrown it and you're just standing there, it's different. When you're running around and you're scrambling and you're throwing and you're running, okay, there's going to be more contact. I mean, the defenders don't know if you're running, you're throwing. So I think there has to be a little more leeway, and it's unfortunate, but I think that's why you got to be careful when you got a Colin Kaepernick, Cam Newton. Health is always going to be a concern because they're going to take more hits than the traditional drop-back passers.
Yeah, I understand that. So you're saying it's kind of on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish up here with question number 3. I'm going to try to get Eric back one more time when we go through our poll results.
Okay, so third question is the Falcons-Browns game. End of the game, Falcons are down 23-21, a minute left. They're driving in Browns territory. Coach Mike Smith, head coach, calls a timeout to set up a third down play. They eventually kick a field goal, but the Browns have enough time because of that timeout to come down, get the ball back, drive down the field, and score their own game-winning field goal. Smith got a lot of flack about the timeout. Was it a bad decision? Was it one of the worst decisions you've seen this season? What do you think?
You know what? He even admitted today. I just saw that a little while ago that he messed up. Shouldn't have called the timeout. I was watching the game on Red Zone at the time, and I thought he was insane for calling the timeout. I mean, never leave the other team time to go down the field and answer your field goal.
Yeah.
Even if you cost yourself a chance to gain another 10, 15 yards because the clock's down to 15 seconds, you don't want to risk it. I'd rather have, with NFL kickers today, I'd rather just kick a 48-yarder and take my chances when I know if it goes in, I'm winning the game, than leave 45 seconds, kick the field goal, but then the other team has a chance to answer. Because even with Brian Hoyer, I mean, they always seem to be able to get down the field into field goal range at the end of halves when they need to do it. So was it the worst decision? I don't know. Was it an awful decision? It was an awful, awful call by Mike Smith, the Falcons coach. And, boy, they're still going to be in first place, though, if the Saints lose tonight on Monday Night Football at 4-7. So,
yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a shocking call. I think he said here was his quote right after the game. He said, "We wanted to get a first down, and we felt like we had a play. That's why we called the timeout. We came over and used it. They would have used the timeout probably if we hadn't." Well, isn't that what you want them to do?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
isn't that what you
True.
want the Browns to use their timeouts so that they can't use them on offense? As a head coach, you're a head coach in the NFL. Like you can't, even if you admit the mistake, you can't make a mistake like that. Like, you just can't.
You can't.
And I feel like they've been terrible for two years now. Like, I feel like that would be kind of a fireable offense.
All right, Ferris, thanks for stopping by.
All right.
I'm going to try to – I see Eric. I don't know whether the connection's good or not, but I want to bring him back one last time to at least thank you. I see you, Eric. Can I hear you? Do we have Eric at all?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, he's there. Yeah, it's just the connection kind of lost us. We got a good solid 10 minutes with you, which was fantastic. I appreciate it, but apparently the gods of the Internet are not going to allow us to go much further here.
Yeah, if nothing else, this is a great advertisement for Skype.
Exactly. It works great for 10 minutes. I mean, you know what? We were being greedy to try to get more than that. Eric, I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us in the Brown Bag. All right, there we go. We kind of got to thank you for having me at the end. All right, we're done with Eric. We got a lot of results on the poll question. I appreciate everyone who sounded off. I'm just going to go through some of the responses here. Ton of responses on Twitter. Dan Fouts or Phillip Rivers, who would you rather have at the quarterback? We went through the numbers earlier. Eric had the great number that both have won 86 games for the Chargers so far. Ken tweeted in, different eras. Fouts made the Hall of Fame without a ring. Rivers has been great, but not sure he makes the Hall of Fame without a ring. You know, I'm not trying to take away Dan Fouts' Hall of Fame. I mean, from his era, he was clearly one of the best quarterbacks of his era. Phillip Rivers, meanwhile, is playing in an era with Peyton Manning, with Tom Brady. You know, he's not nearly as good of a quarterback in his era, but the numbers are very much on Rivers' side. So, you know, are you an era person or are you a strict numbers person is the question on that one. Bob tweets in, Fouts with today's rules. Certainly the rules do come into play on this. You know, offenses have a lot more leeway than they did in Fouts' time. But I also want to point out, and the coach John Quintero, who sat in the co-host chair on Bolts Brown Bag a few weeks ago, says Fouts not even close. I think I have to point out, though, that Dan Fouts had Hall of Famers all around him. Kellen Winslow, Charlie Joyner. I mean, he had some of the great receivers. Wes Chandler catching the ball. Phillip Rivers has had Antonio Gates. That's one Hall of Famer. But, you know, the rest of it, you know, Keenan Allen's been decent. Malcolm Floyd's okay, but no one's sending them to Canton, Ohio. So, you know, the surrounding cast, you got to give Fouts the advantage on that. He's had better players to work with over the course of his career. I appreciate everyone who sounded off on that one. Let's see if I get the final poll results here. At least what we've got updated. Right now, Dan Fouts, 56% to 44%. So pretty even so far. 56 to 44%. Dan Fouts leading. Next week, Chargers take on the Baltimore Ravens. They head out on the road. We will be back next Monday. If the Chargers win, get to 8-4, they're going to be in fantastic playoff spot. We got the updated standings for you right now. It is the rest of the season. Obviously, it's a brutal schedule the rest of the way. At Baltimore, home for New England, home against the Denver Broncos, and then at San Francisco and at Kansas City. But I'd also argue that none of those games are not winnable. They are all winnable. Chargers game behind the Broncos in the AFC West, tied with the Chiefs. Chiefs still have the tiebreaker. I'd say to make the playoffs, Chargers are going to have to go 3-2 and beat the Chiefs in that final game of the season, and it's just a toss-up in that wild card race. 4 teams at 7-4. Ravens play tonight against the Saints, so the Chargers are going to be able to scout them a little bit on Monday Night Football. It's going to come down to tiebreakers, likely at 10-6. It's going to be thrillingly exciting the last month of the season. We'll be here every Monday at 12:30. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Bolts Brown Bag. We will talk to you next week.